Hey, what's going on, guys? Last week, former UFC light heavyweight champion Jamahal Hill was arrested for domestic violence from an alleged assault of his brother. And when this news came out, we didn't have a whole lot of details. Well, now we have more details regarding the incident. The police report was now released. And let me just say, the details of this incident with Jamahal Hill and his brother are repugnant, they're disgusting, they're disturbing, and they're worse than I could have imagined, to be quite honest. And when I initially did the video last week, we really had no idea what went on. All we knew that Jamahal Hill's brother was pressing charges because Jamahal Hill allegedly assaulted him. And when I initially made my first video, which I'll link down in the description, I said, look, I'll make follow-up videos as we get more details. But one thing that I didn't get to gauge before I made that video was the fan reaction to the initial news. Because I made the video so quickly, I really didn't get to find out how the fan base was reacting. And let me just say this, the fan base's initial reaction to the Jamahal Hill news was disgusting. I saw so many people making up like fan fiction and saying, well, brothers get into fights all the time. I'm sure that, they were getting together for the holidays and they were probably drunk and they probably ended up assaulting each other. And they're making these fan fiction stories of what potentially happened. And they're just saying, well, brothers fight and that's it. It's the end of the day. It's just brothers fighting. And Jamahal Hill's brother's disgusting for even pressing charges on his brother. That's the kind of response we saw from the MMA community. And I suggested, even in my initial video, because I saw a little bit of that before I even did my video, was where does the threat of criminality and acceptance between siblings end? You're allowed to assault your brother? Are you allowed to rob your brother? Are you allowed to rape your brother? Are you allowed to murder your brother? Where does it end? I'm curious, because the fan base is acting as if, well, it's acceptable because it's his brother. And it's really not. In my opinion, it's not. There's very, few circumstances where it would be acceptable. And the details of the police report, this is nowhere near close to acceptable. And I'm going to discuss what I think happens with Jamahal Hill in the legal system. And I'm going to discuss what I think the UFC may do about this. But honestly, this entire situation is still alleged. Jamahal Hill will have his day in court. And he's come out and said, look, I can't talk about the case, but I look forward to the truth coming out in court. And I respect that. And if it's proven that Jamahal Hill is innocent in all this and he didn't do any of this, I'll be the first to make a video and discuss it, saying Jamahal Hill found innocent. These were false accusations. I'll be the first to do it. But this isn't a court of law. This isn't a court where I'm ruling on guilt or not. I'm reacting to the news that's being reported, the police report that's been reported. And this is a court of public opinion. And I want to discuss this situation because some of these details, honestly, if true, he deserves to be suspended from the UFC. If true, there should be some type of monetary fine by the UFC, even though I'm thinking that's probably not going to happen, but we'll talk about that later in the video. But it's just crazy to me that the fan base will rally around Jamahal Hill knowing that he got accused of domestic violence against his brother. And that's another thing that drove me nuts afterwards. People are saying, how could they label this domestic violence? They're implying that he assaulted a woman. No, domestic violence is any violence within a home or within a family can be deemed domestic violence. And some of the details regarding this situation makes it even more domestic violence, in my opinion. But I don't understand how people are saying, oh, this is clickbait. This is disgusting to label it this way. Oh, because you have reading and comprehension issues and you don't know the definitions of words. Somehow that makes the media bad. I'm the first to crap on the media. I'm the first to crap on them and say, what are they doing here? This is disgusting. But this is literally a textbook definition of domestic violence. If you don't know what domestic violence is, that's your issue. That is your issue. You need to learn to look up definitions and understand words. So it's just, it's wild to me that more people were upset about the headline written by different MMA media outlets and TMZ. More people were upset about that than they were upset about Jamahal Hill as a trained killer allegedly assaulting his brother. And another thing that genuinely drove me nuts about this situation, and I love calling out MMA fans for hypocrisy. And if you think back, what is a situation kind of similar to this? Well, it would be Jorge Masvidal sucker punching Colby Covington. And my take on that initially was, I'm not surprised. This sounds like something Masvidal would do. It's disgusting behavior. Sucker punching anyone is disgusting behavior. But for some reason, the MMA community, the same MMA community that condemned Masvidal, that said Masvidal's a piece of crap, he shouldn't have done this, he's disgusting for assaulting Colby Covington and sucker punching him, he should have done it in the cage. When you have Masvidal sucker punching another trained fighter, okay, and just to be clear, I think it's disgusting as well to sucker punch anyone or to attack anyone, especially unprovoked, or not necessarily unprovoked, but where someone doesn't see it coming. I think that's particularly disgusting. But then you have a situation where you have a UFC champion or a former UFC champion assaulting his untrained brother, and these same fans are defending now Jamahal Hill, and it just shows you the hypocrisy of the MMA community. They basically just pick and choose who they want to defend based off of who they like. That is it. So the same people, if you were trashing Jorge Masvidal and saying Jorge Masvidal's a thug and he's a bad family man and he's disgusting for attacking Colby Covington, you need to be saying the same thing about Jamahal Hill. Now, I want to be very clear again, even though I've already said in the beginning of the video, these are just allegations, okay? I'm not a court of law. I want Jamahal Hill to go to court. I want him to prove his innocence. And if he's found innocent, great. I'll be the first to say it out loud. I'll be the first to cover it. But right now, these are the details we have. This is basically a report from MMA Fighting, or an article from MMA Fighting, based off the police report from Jamahal Hill being arrested. Let's take a look at it. According to the report, the UFC fighter and his brother made an agreement for James and his wife to clean Jamal's house for $300, which had been left vacant and without electricity, causing food to rot and spoil. The argument began around 7 p.m. local time, quote, about the house being cleaned, and, quote, other family matters. Before, according to the alleged victim, Hill took off his shirt and got into his face before allegedly punching his brother in the face, knocking him to the ground. The report states that according to James, he stood back up when his wife tried to stand between the two before Jamahal Hill reached around James's wife and punched James in the face once again, causing him to fall and become dazed. The officer notes that James had a tooth knocked out during the alleged dispute, and James' face had significant swelling. Further details in the case report obtained by MMA Fighting states that the argument really got heated when James, quote, asked Jamal why he never texted his own daughter that was at their house for Thanksgiving, and accused Jamal of being, quote, being disrespectful to women and abandoning his own daughter. And the first punch Jamal threw was an alleged sucker punch. The report states that James debated whether or not to call the police because he didn't want to ruin Jamal's UFC fighting career, but multiple texts from James to Jamal asking for a reason why the alleged assault happened and asking for an apology were not responded to. An unidentified witness corroborated James' story according to the report and added Jamal took his shirt off because James was allegedly speaking truth, and that when standing in between the brothers, Jamal did not touch her while allegedly delivering the second punch to James. The witness stated that Jamal's 3 kids were in the room when the incident occurred. If true, those details are completely disgusting and abhorrent. Not only the fact that Jamahal Hill assaulted his brother twice, he hit him once, dropped him. When he got back up, he hit him again, knocking out a tooth. He did this in front of his brother's wife, and he did this in front of his own kids. That is disgusting behavior. And to be fair, and I've already said this multiple times, Jamahal Hill has come out and said, basically, this stuff is false. This is not true. But if this police report is even slightly accurate, if it's even 50% accurate, this is disturbing behavior. I don't know how anyone would defend this, because it's one thing to assault your brother, which is disgusting because he's a trained UFC fighter and your brother is not a trained UFC fighter. But it's a whole nother thing to assault him twice, knocking out his teeth, reaching around to punch him in the face around his own wife. Meanwhile, your young children are there watching in horror. That is disgusting behavior. And I know people are going to say, Joe, you got an axe to grind with Jamahal Hill. I really don't. I've called him out on abhorrent behavior before. He's gone around lobbying thinly veiled threats against MMA media members because he doesn't like the questions that those MMA media members ask. Which, if somebody tells you who they are, listen. Jamahal Hill went out of his way to say about Ariel Helwani, you're only safe because I allow you to be safe. Apparently, Jamahal Hill might have said that to his brother too. Or Jamahal Hill says, well, where I come from, that constitutes an ass whooping. And Jamahal Hill has shown a behavior that he has a bully mentality. He trains in mixed martial arts, and he thinks he can go around determining what's allowed to be said and what's not allowed to be said. And apparently according to this article, Jamahal Hill's brother's calling him out for being a bad parent. So then Jamahal Hill shows what a bad parent he is by assaulting his brother in front of his kids. It's just disgusting behavior. It really is disturbing. And I think with this level of detail now that's come out in the police report, I think more fans will start to kind of see the side of it where this is not okay. This is not okay at all. You're not allowed to train every single day to become world champion. And then just because you can't control your temper, you're allowed to assault your brother and knock his teeth out. And there was more information about, the backstory of the cleaning of the house in a TMZ article. The article I read from was an MMA fighting article. I will link both articles down below. But more information about it was supposedly he paid his brother and his wife to clean the house. They cleaned the house, but they missed a freezer in the garage that they didn't clean out. So Jamahal Hill wasn't happy about that. So the brother went back and cleaned out that freezer. And this is when the alleged assault happened. And it's not good. It's not a good look for a UFC champion. And it's just disturbing behavior. And I really think there should be some type of punishment. If, the UFC doesn't indicate any type of willingness to offer a punishment to Jamahal Hill, it's just free range to do anything. And I'm not saying he needs to be completely cut from the roster or, I really don't know what the punishment should be, but there should be some type of repercussions for this type of behavior. But I know there won't be. Just to tell you guys right now, there will not be any type of punishment from the UFC. Dana White already said the other day, oh, I don't know nothing about that, but that sounds like a family issue. Dana White slaps his wife in a club in Mexico at 53, and he thinks that's acceptable. Jamahal Hill says everyone should keep their hands to themselves. Well, I'm curious, does that only apply when you're defending your boss by slapping their wife in a club in Mexico at 53, or does that apply at all times? Because obviously Jamahal Hill doesn't practice what he preaches, because he would have kept his hands to himself. And going out of your way to assault a civilian who doesn't have any training just because you can't control your own temper is completely disgusting, completely disturbing. But I look forward to seeing some more information coming out about this. Who knows what will end up happening? They might end up settling out of court. He might convince his brother to drop the charges. But it's even more disturbing that his brother's calling him out for being a bad parent. And then, if this is true, if this story is true, which is a big if, we're going to find out. But if he's calling him out for being a bad parent, and then he's assaulting his brother in front of his kids, that right there is indicative that the brother is right in his assumption to say, you're not a very good parent. And he should call him out for that. If he's a good brother, he should call him out for that. So, I look forward to seeing what more information can come out regarding this subject. I don't think the UFC will do something. I could foresee potential legal action ended up happening. Maybe he gets a fine. Maybe he settles out of court. Maybe he does serve some jail time. I find that highly unlikely. But bare minimum, I think he's going to be paying for his brother's medical bills. And, I think he's going to take a little bit of hit in terms of his reputation, because this is disgusting behavior. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe. And thank you so much for watching.